Welcome and good afternoon. This is Commish Orr. Today we're going to do something that we haven't done for a little bit, and that's give an update on my Payoff Pitch POPs League Season 2. I play about 4 games every real week, and alternating between this project and a season ticket baseball project, best of the 90s tournament. And so I just finished a week of Payoff Pitch and thought I'd give you a little update on where we're at. If you watched the last video, you know that I have brought in players from the brand new Negro League set, Negro League Stars set, an incredible set from Payoff Pitch that I recommend that you pick up, as well as a Legends and Busts set that allowed me to add players to the pitching staff of each team to give us a little bit more depth in the pitching staff. So, new players, many of which played during these games. And so I thought I'd give you a little update on how things went for this day, actually. There are 4 teams in each league, 4 American League, 4 National League teams. 3 teams in each of those leagues is made up of Hall of Famers. So we have 3 Hall of Fame teams. And then the 4th team is made up of great players not in the Hall of Fame. So players that are either like Ichiro, who isn't in the Hall of Fame yet because he hasn't been eligible, and then other players who aren't in the Hall of Fame for various other reasons, such as Pete Rose, or Barry Bonds, or Roger Clemens, or Mark McGwire, or Sammy Sosa, players that have been kept out of the Hall for one reason or another, or maybe they're good players that just never have gotten in. And anyway, so we have a team of American League and team of National League players that fall into those categories as well. That's kind of the setup for the league. So let's first start with the Swats and Jacks. The New York Swats playing the Oakland Jacks. And Addy Joss actually made his league debut in this one. And I'm going to have to back this up a little bit so that you can see. There we go. So you can see the box score here. And as you can see, this was all Oakland. Oakland Jacks, who Addy Joss started for. This was his first start of the season. He just came into the league because Payoff Pitch doesn't have some of those earlier seasons. However, the Legends Bus set does have some of those players from earlier seasons. And so Addy Joss came in based on that. And he did really well. He went through a complete game in his first start, allowed just 2 earned runs on 9 hits. And, one of those runs came in the 9th inning. So he'd only allowed 1 earned run up to that point. Pitched a really good game, even though he didn't strike out very many. He only struck out 1 batter. He only allowed one walk, though, too. And he was facing off against Lefty Gomez. And there we go. And he was facing off against Lefty Gomez. And Lefty Gomez didn't have the greatest start. A lot of that reason because here in the Ricky Henderson led off the game with a home run. So that kind of started things on a down note. And then in the 3rd inning, Jimmy Fox hit a 3-run homer. That put Oakland up 4-0 at that point. And they just never looked back. Gomez would last 6 innings, allowed 5 earned runs, 9 hits. Ed Walsh actually pitched an inning in there. He was also a player that just joined the league. Bullet Rogan had been in the league, but with a 1921 card, and now I have switched him over to the Negro League card. And so he didn't do so great in his inning. He allowed 3 hits, 3 runs. Only one of them was earned, but didn't do the greatest here in the 8th inning, and that allowed Oakland to score 3 more runs there in the 8th. But Oakland takes this one 10-2, even though they only out-hit New York 12-9. New York did commit 3 errors though, which didn't help anything either. So there were a couple of unearned runs in there. New York, as you see, 5-10. After this loss, Oakland improved to 7-8. Yeah, not much more else to say about that one. Heading over to the National League side of things, we had the St. Louis Wizards facing the Houston Hoots. And we had Bob Gibson facing off against Robin Roberts in this game. And Gibson did not have it. He pitched a couple of great games heading into this one. In fact, Houston's pitching staff as a whole, I think they lead the league in ERA. But Gibson just, he had one really bad inning, the seventh inning. But even in the first, St. Louis got off to a hot start here. There was an error to lead off the game by Arky Vaughn. But then Duke Snider hit a 3-run homer in the first inning. So to kind of set the tone. Now Bagwell did hit a solo shot in the bottom of the second to get Houston on the board. And kept the game kind of close until the 6th and 7th innings when St. Louis really pulled away. Robin Roberts pitched pretty well. He went 8 innings, allowed just 2 earned runs, struck out 7, allowed just 7 hits. And, he was just pretty much cruising in this one. As you can see, here in the 7th is where things really fell apart as Gibson came into this one. I think he'd only allowed 4 hits up until that point. And then here in the 7th inning, single, fly out. 2-run double by Willie Mays. RBI single from Willie McCovey. RBI single from Mike Schmidt. A fly out. And then a single by Gabby Hartnett. Another single by Joe Morgan. An RBI single by Joe Morgan. And then another fly out to get him out of the inning. And then Jesse Haynes came in for the last 2 innings and they didn't score in those innings. But by then the damage was already done. They took an 8-1 lead into the bottom of the 8th. They scored, 9-1. They scored another run in the 8th to make it 9-2, but still, the game was well out of hand. Now, that being said, Houston did have a good 9th inning here, but it was against Rube Marquard, who has not been the greatest pitcher in either season 1 or season 2, and that continued here in this game as he allowed 3 runs on 4 hits in just 2/3 of an inning. Finally, Burley Grimes came in to kind of close the door because it was 9-5 and Houston could see things getting out of hand. So he came in to close the door on that. St. Louis does take this one 9-5, 13 hits to Houston's 11 hits. And again, Houston, though, Oscar Charleston, 3 for 5 to kind of lead them in this one. Houston is in first place in the National League, but St. Louis has cut that down to only a 1-game lead here. As you can see, Houston's 9-6, St. Louis 8-7 to start their series. Heading over back to the American League, and we have the Detroit Rockets, who are the non-Hall of Fame team, facing off against the Boston Splinters. And this one was all Rockets. It was shortened due to heavy rain that called the game, but that was kind of fine for Boston because they were not doing well. Roy Halladay I think this was his first start, and he only lasted 3 innings. Surprisingly, I think Halladay that season only allowed 3 homers in real life, and he allowed 3 just in this game. Started off with a Bill Freehand grand slam here in the 2nd inning, and then Dick Allen added a 2-run homer in the 3rd, and then in the 4th, Bill Freehand hit another homer, a 2-run shot here in the 4th that knocked Halladay out of the game. Walter Johnson came in for his first appearance, and he didn't fare too much better as he allowed several base hits here, and then Dick Allen hit his 2nd homer of the game. So Dick Allen and Bill Freehand both hit 2 homers in this game. Mark McGuire added another solo shot. So 5 home runs overall for Detroit here in this one. And again, that heavy rain called the game. Meanwhile, Roger Clemens was rolling along here. 5 innings. In his 5 innings pitched, he allowed only 3 hits, struck out 4, and didn't walk any to improve to 2-1. And a little tidbit for you, even though the game only went 5 innings, it was an official game, and Clemens still gets a complete game shutout, even though it was only 5 innings, because he did pitch the complete game and allowed no earned runs. So if you're ever wondering if pitchers can still get a shutout with a shortened game, they can. As you see, Detroit wins this one 13-0. They out hit Boston 13-1. Each of the teams did have an error. Alex Rodriguez had a couple of stolen bases in this game, which are fairly rare for him. But he had a couple of stolen bases against Carlton Fisk, who actually has a really good arm. But he just got a couple of good jumps and was able to steal those bases here in this one. Every Detroit player had a hit, had at least one hit. And of course, Dick Allen and Bill Freehan each had 2 homers. For Freehan, it was his first 2 homers of the season. And we're 15 games in here. And Dick Allen now has 10 home runs on the season in 15 games. Just an incredible pace. And so Detroit improves to 8-7. Boston falls to 10-5. I believe they had a winning streak, a 3-game winning streak heading into this one. So that broke that. But they're still in first place in the American League. Finally, heading over to the National League, we have the Chicago Docks, which is the non-Hall of Fame National League team, facing off against the Los Angeles Dynamos. And it was Don Drysdale and Dwight Gooden facing off in this one. And a fairly close game. There was a lot of scoring early, and then things kind of calmed down. LA scored in the first a run in the first inning, but Chicago responded. Sammy Sosa hit a solo shot there in the top of the second to tie things back up. Now, LA retook the lead here in the bottom of the second with 2 runs, but then Chicago retook the lead from them with 3 runs in the top of the third, thanks to a couple of base hits, 4 straight base hits to lead that inning against Drysdale. He only allowed 6 hits in 8 innings, and 4 of those came here in the third. Joey Votto actually had a 2-run double that put them ahead, put Chicago ahead 4-3 at that point. But Dwight Gooden could not keep them scoring off the board, and a couple of doubles here in the bottom of the third tied things up at 4. And then in the fourth, a couple of more base hits. Ron Santo actually had an RBI double, and Todd Helton had another RBI single to give LA the 6-4 lead. And then neither team would score after that. So that's where things stood. Gooden went 7 innings, allowed 6 runs on 12 hits, did strike out 8. Meanwhile, Drysdale, again, after those 4 hits allowed in the third inning, he only allowed 1 more hit the rest of the game, and that came in the 8th. So he had a span there where he retired. Well, I guess he had a walk in there, but other than the walk, he hadn't allowed a hit in quite a span there in the middle innings. Drysdale struck out 5. He earns his first win. Lee Smith came in the 9th to close things out, had a perfect 9th inning to pick up his 3rd save. And Kevin Brown was a new addition from the Legends of Bus set here for the Chicago Docks, and he pitched a scoreless inning as well, though he did allow a base hit and hit a batter. But then he struck out Todd Helton and Chipper Jones to end the inning to get out of it. So that's how this game panned out. Chicago 7-8 now with that loss. LA improves to 6-9, just 1 game behind Chicago in the National League, and that's kind of where things stand. So taking a look now, if we will, at I think I have it here. Let's take a look at some of the stats from the season. And I'm going to blow this up a little bit, even though it's still going to probably be hard for you to read. And as you can see, American League, the offense just keeps chugging along. We're 15 games in, 294 batting average overall in the American League with a 6.25 ERA. Just crazy. Just crazy. The offense has just been crazy in the American League so far. I'd imagine that will kind of calm back down. But for now, things have been crazy. Yeah, Boston has now lost 3 straight games. Actually, I think I said they had a 3-game winning streak coming into that one, but they've actually lost 3 straight games, but they still have a 2-game lead here in the American League at 10-5. Yeah, every American League team is hitting over 290 or above, which is nuts. In the National League, as you can see here, St. Louis has gained a couple of games here recently on Houston. They've cut that lead down to just one game. Only 3 games separates first and last place here in the National League. And in the National League, batting average 250 overall with a 4.16 ERA, which is much more in line with what you would expect. But just like season 1, saw the same thing. American League batting averages and ERAs were all higher in the American League in season 1. National League much lower in season 1. So it's been interesting to see that it wasn't a fluke, and overall the American League hitting has just been better, or maybe it's American League pitching has been worse, whichever way you want to cut it. Let's take a look at the league leaders. So far through these 15 games, Harold Baines is leading in batting average with a 405 average. Dick Allen right behind him at 377. Todd Helton leading the National League with a 353 average. Now, if we look at slugging, of course, Dick Allen has those 10 homers, so not surprising that he would lead in slugging with a 934 slugging percentage. He also leads on base at 457. Leading the National League in slugging is Mike Schmidt at 635. If we go down here, we can see home run leaders. Yeah, Dick Allen, 10 homers. Next closest is Babe Ruth and Frank Thomas at 7. The National League leader is Mike Schmidt with 6. So that's been interesting. Of course, Dick Allen leading in RBI. So Dick Allen is pretty much leading in most of the offensive categories so far, just being on fire with those homers here early on. Not much else to report, I don't think, here. Nothing too surprising. Let's take a look at the pitching leaders so far. And this is overall. You can break it down by American and National League separately, but just overall. So Juan Marichal, 104 ERA. Don Sutton, 180. Steve Carlton, 182. It's all National League players until you get to David Cone here. David Cone with a 309 leads the American League in ERA. Though the Nolan Ryan and Bert Blyleven have 3 wins apiece in the American League. Sandy Koufax 3 wins in the National League. And Koufax actually leads in strikeouts, 38 strikeouts so far to lead the entire league. Bruce Sutter has 6 saves to lead in that category, with Raleigh Fingers leading the American League with 5. And again, you can kind of see opponent batting average. Phil Niekro actually leading in that category, and base runners per 9 innings, only allowing about 7 base runners per 9 innings, 7.2 for Phil Niekro. And yeah, David Cone is on the list in the American League at just over 10 runners per base runners per 9 innings to lead the American League. What else? Yeah, not much else to report, I don't think, in this category. Randy Johnson has just struggled so far. 3 losses, terrible ERA. I think he still has a lot of strikeouts here, 23 strikeouts, but he's just been getting rocked every time he gets in there. Yeah, so we're just over a fourth of the way through the season. I'm playing a 54 game season, much like I did in season 1 of the Pops League. I will have an all-star game in the middle of this season, much like I did in season 1. We'll have an all-star game, which was fun, and so be looking for that here. But of course, I only play 1 day, if you will, per week that I do play this. So 4 games every game day, and I play about 4 games a week overall. So I'm only getting through about 1 game day of this league every other week because, of course, I'm alternating with the season ticket baseball project that I have going on. So it's it's going to take a little bit before we get through the season, which is fine. But we're a little over a quarter of the way through, and it's been interesting to see how things are progressing. I'm really love to add those players from the Negro Leagues and the Legends bus set to see how they're doing. and how that's going to affect things as well. One of the drawbacks of this league has been because I have 3 teams of Hall of Famers and limitations based on who's carded in Payoff Pitch. I only had a 9-man pitching staff for each team. I've been able to expand that to 10 with the Legends of Bust set, so that we have 16 position players, 16 position players and 10 pitchers on each team in the 26-man roster. I think once this season is complete, I'll have to reevaluate whether to use the Legends of Bust set for everybody, because right now most players have just their quote-unquote best season card. But of course, Payoff Pitch doesn't card every season, so it's the best season card that Payoff Pitch cards for these players, which is also why some of these players weren't in the league, because their best season wasn't very good. And I didn't want to have a Hall of Famer come in with one of the seasons when they were aging and weren't very good anymore. So I've had to make some concessions there. In any event, if you want to follow the action, you can head over to baseballmaelstrom.com. You can follow the action there. I do a little write-up on each game. And for the Payoff Pitch League, you can see the standings, upcoming schedule, and recent box scores. Every game I do a write-up. You can click to see the box score and score sheet. And at the top are the individual pages for different projects that I have going on. So Pop Season 2 has a couple here. That 1990s Best of tourney that I was talking about is here. The 1930s tourney that I finished is here. Season 1 of the Pops League is here. And then I did a History Maker baseball tournament with the all-time franchise great sets. You can find the results for that here. All of that said, that's where we will leave things today. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear your comments down below. And until next time, have a great evening.